Hello, I'm Ryan Reyes.
And I'm Ricky Macias.
And I'm Dominic Angel. And together,
we are all
Un
Poquito. You guys adding barks now? Because I didn't sign off on this.
Creative choices.
Un Poquito Podcast, exploring Latin culture little by little.
Hell yeah. We're going to skip all of the housekeeping stuff. I first want to thank everybody for holding it down while I was away. I want to thank everybody that continued to listen and watch. I took some much needed time off, and now I'm back, and it's good to be back. We have a Discord. Honestly, the Discord has been popping. Mm-hmm. It's free to join. Meeting a lot of great people and having a lot of cool conversations. So yeah, join the Discord. We have a Patreon if you want to support us. Follow us on social media at Un Poquito Pod everywhere. That's all I remember. We're gonna keep going.
That's why we're not doing it anymore.
Yeah, I literally just said we're not gonna do it, and then I did it.
But I guess we're doing what you want.
At least you did a shorter. You probably did a shorter version of it.
Yeah, I mean the people already know. You know.
If you know, you know.
Like, comment, subscribe. Comments make you sexy. I can't not do it, guys.
Yeah.
I can't.
He's back.
I never left. Okay.
Never.
My body was gone, but my brain was always here. Okay?
I know. I could feel it.
It's your birthday, dog.
It is my birthday.
It is.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for all the birthday wishes. By the time this episode airs, it will already have passed. But I'm just going to milk it. So thank you for bringing it up. Hopefully people say happy birthday in the comments.
You're going to get a lot of happy belated birthday.
Yeah.
Cake icon.
Be one of those people that have a whole birthday month.
I hate those people.
I was a big fan of the birthday week. The problem that I have now is that I just work a shitty schedule, so I can't like have a birthday week because I work nights.
Yeah.
So
that's not a good birthday week.
I understand the birthday week. Like, you're giving your family time to, like, your friends and family, because not everyone can make birthday day. You know what I mean? Not everyone can go to the birthday dinner or like remembers on the day, but they remember the general week. People that insist on celebrating the entire month are like assholes to me.
Yeah.
I had friends in high school that did that, and it's like, your birthday is the same month as Christmas. We're not doing this.
Yeah, it's like real only child energy.
Exactly.
And they want you to do the craziest shit. Like, we're going to Vegas, and then we're going to New Zealand.
That's such a scale of, like...
Yeah.
And you think they don't make sense, but they have the best casinos.
We're going to lose all of our money, and then we're going to go out of country.
Yeah. And
to
work on a
see
sheep
fence,
farm.
To see a fence made of toothbrushes.
Is this sheep farm?
Shut the fuck up. You fucking...
It's real.
You fly to the Concords loving ass. Also, here's a tip for people that have birthdays, okay? I'm a Capricorn. I know what I said. Listen, I'm very much a person that when I know it's your... I don't know when your birthday is, Ricky.
It's real soon.
When is it?
Tomorrow?
It's so close that I don't want to bring it up.
Okay. So... When I know...
It's the day you share the...
It's the day that this episode airs. We're a week behind. It's behind. Okay, stay focused, guys. No, okay, so I'm very much a person that I'm very good at gift giving. I shouldn't say I'm good at it. I'm like a Leslie Knope when it comes to like gift giving. Like,
yeah.
I'm very like thoughtful to a dangerous degree.
Wow.
But I'm good at gift giving, and if I'm close to you, I will try to go out of my way to plan for certain people, not for everybody, but for certain people, like a nice birthday for them. Like, so for like a brother or a partner or our parents or something, like I will plan a good birthday for you. But as a Capricorn, birthdays are depressing. One, it's the winter. It's the start of the year. Everybody's fucking busy. And also, I think there's a thing that I've had to work on myself where it's like, I don't think I realized it until recently that I was going above and beyond birthday expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it's not reciprocated by other people, I start to get like real sad and depressed. Like nobody loves me, because that's how I express like that I care about somebody.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So also I realize you kind of have to start doing that for yourself, which is not just a Capricorn thing. I just want to make a note, let it be known that I'm a Capricorn. That's why I say it so much. Okay.
I'm really trying to befriend.
But here's what you do. Don't be afraid to do exactly what you want for your birthday. Like treat yourself, right? Treat yourself to what you want to do. And then create like an itinerary. This is a very Capricorn thing. I created an
This is very like Parks and Recs episode.
I create an itinerary, right? And then I send it out to people. And I'm like, this is what I'm going to be doing. Because your dumbass is not thoughtful enough to plan something for me.
Damn, Dominic's just a Leslie Knope looking for his Ben Wyatt, huh?
Oh, damn. I never understood the obsession with his butt, because I'm like, Adam Scott, I love you, dog.
But
But that butt has stopped 6 years ago.
yeah,
It's like Step Brothers, but not.
But that's love though. Like he definitely doesn't have an ass, but she loves that ass.
That's white people. They don't know what assholes look like. Okay.
That reminds me of that line from Scrubs when JD's like, "Your butt looks like two Pringles hugging." And like, who wants that? What does that mean?
What does that mean?
Because I'm thinking of stacked Pringles, and that's flat as fuck.
Two Pringles hugging.
So you have a crescent-shaped crack?
Like the what's that movie studio Adobe sign? The
Dolby Digital?
right.
That's that Dolby Digital cheeks.
But one of them does that. I'm over here trying to figure.
Yeah, you got
She
that.
has one cheek.
You got that crescent moon crack.
It's the duck mouth.
Do they?
Oh,
I wouldn't call that a hug.
they're just like kind of tenderly
Unless
kissing.
he means like the crease of the butt.
Also,
It did
a
not make
hugging would be
sense.
like this. So
So you got sphere.
I know that I wasn't on the mic for most of that. Okay, for the audio listeners, I try to figure out all the ways in which Pringles could hug. None of them formed a butt.
Yeah.
That's a lot of geometry. I'm not educated enough to handle.
Or like one.
That was
sideways.
a plug for the Patreon episode, so stay tuned for that.
But I do think what you're saying goes into like understanding love languages, because here's a concept that I've had
Spanish.
to like.
Oh,
French, Italian, anything that incorporates.
Romanian is a romance link. I'm Romanian. Okay,
I got it.
I get it. Okay, I
Oh,
got it. I
wow.
see what they
Okay,
did there.
we're getting to the source.
Yes, love languages.
Well, so something that I've had to like kind of not come to terms with, but recognize about love languages is, first of all, every individual kind of has like. I mean, I'm speaking off of memory, so I want to be clear. If I'm wrong in anything, correct me in the comments. But I believe that like
leave a comment at any point.
Yeah,
Comments make you sexy.
That's our love language.
TM.
Comments are our love language. No, I'm just kidding. But so like everyone has two forms of love languages, where there's how they give love, how they receive love, and kind of when you're singing with someone who has different love languages, you have to find the compromise of those four things.
5.
No, I mean the
Oh,
between those two individuals.
yeah.
And so that's the thing of like that's one of your love languages is gift giving and acts of service, and sometimes, like you said, when it's not reciprocated, it's hard to understand that that's just not how the other person shows it.
Right. Yeah, no, I got that. Which is why I created the itinerary. Because
Which is why you created a rule book, so people like know how to love you.
yeah. Like you're looking at me like I'm doing something crazy right now, and I'm just making sure that I'm being taken care of. Okay?
And you know what? That's fair, because gift giving is definitely my lowest. Like
I love that you called it gift gimme.
gift giving.
Give me them
Give me-
gifts.
I don't think that gift giving is one of my love languages, but I think I'm a good interpreter for that, because I am the reference point for most people's gifts.
You gave me some shitty gifts, okay?
You gave me some shit. He gave me some.
I said it with an accent because I almost started crying.
Give me your bed again. Just say something good, Lord.
Oh man.
A basket with creams and lotions.
You
That
want
would
the,
have been a better gift
You
than
want the-
anything you've given me.
What?
2 years ago. This was 2 years ago. No, one. Fuck. When was it? I think it was 2 years ago. It's my last birthday. Last year. We went to Universal Studios. It was me, my mom, Ryan, and our brother Diego.
Right.
Spent the day at Universal Studios, and then we went to go eat at a restaurant, and then they gave me the gifts, right? I feel so bad saying this. But they got me a sweater that I was like, oh, this is a cool sweater. It had a picture of a cactus on it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the bottom, it said always prickly. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I really like how the artwork looked on it. Like, it looked like a cool sweater. It looked like kind of like one of those sweaters that you get at like a truck stop that's like Sierra Nevada, always prickly. Like, and I liked it. I wore it, right? And what I didn't tell them was that after this birthday, I went out like on a date. Like immediately after I left, I went out on a date. And I wore that sweater because I was like, oh, this is a nice sweater. 4 months ago, I saw the sweater again. Like I was doing laundry and I kind of like did this. And I saw the sweater and the cactus was a middle finger. And it said always prickly on it. What the fuck? What? When? Why?
So I want to say originally,
They gave me a prank.
Originally, I also just saw the. I am very blind in my eyes. I also just saw the cactus, and at first I genuinely thought it was a good shirt. Then when I realized it was a middle finger, I'm like, this is a very good shirt, and I got it for you immediately.
Oh.
No.
I got you other stuff. What about this? What about your Christmas gift?
What was that? Oh, the
shirt.
Oh, that was cool. It was a Power Rangers.
Yeah,
shirt.
let's talk about the good gift.
Yeah, well, the good gifts.
Oh yeah,
didn't-
that was cool.
The good gifts didn't ruin one of his dates.
Yeah, it didn't ruin a date.
Are you saying you wouldn't want to? Well, let's go on a date tonight with that
Right.
shirt.
I'm not gonna drive home and then come back.
Well, lucky for imagine. Happy birthday. It's the exact same shit.
But anyway, it's also. I'm gonna stop talking about this because I'm gonna make my family feel bad.
Well, you love you.
I've realized that when you feel a certain way about a thing, you have to understand that not everybody thinks that way. So you kind of have to explain it to them, and then also accept that, like, for certain people, like, they don't think about gift giving the same ways. They're,
Yeah.
you know, I will, like, I go out of my way to find the perfect gift. And a lot of people don't do that. They're like, oh, here's something cute that they'll like.
Because I'm kind of the opposite. I kind of don't want gifts sometimes because I feel like if it's not something I actually want or need, I think it's hard for people to get me gifts in general. But like, it just feels like I have a thing to take care of or use that I don't want to
Oh, like
use.
they're giving you responsibility.
Yes.
Right.
And it just feels like I have to worry about your feelings more than...
Have you always been like this? Like,
I think to some degree.
this might be a personal product question, but do you think... I think... I don't know. For me, it's like two sides of the same trauma.
Yeah.
Being poor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know you're hitting on something.
Of like having to take care of things because you don't have a lot. And so
That's
like,
probably part of it.
so if you don't have a lot of belongings and then someone gives you a new belonging, now it's a pressure to like take care of
They're
it.
going to be mad at me if I mess this up.
Yeah.
They're gonna have. Oh, you're hitting some things I never consciously really thought of.
I mean, I don't want to project and
I
say
have a
that
story. I have a story that is one of probably a few situations. My cousin, I think for my birthday, when I was young, when I lived with my uncles and with all my cousins, they got me various Christmas presents, and I think one was like a Batmobile. So dope, excited.
How old were you?
I was like 7, 8, something like that. And one of the toys was a Kiss action figure.
Which one? Ace Frehley?
The one with the guitar.
Do you know?
Who has the guitar?
Gene,
So his
Ace. Well, the thing is that Gene, the main guy was the bass. So
Okay.
the other two guys are.
Star Child?
I don't maybe Star Child because the guitar was kind of shaped that way, and his guitar in all intents and purposes, it was a good not right kid. Like his guitar would fold into where he would stand on it and ride it around like a hoverboard. Kind of cool, right?
I think the Star Child.
That's probably Star Child.
Right.
I got that toy, and because I wasn't playing with it as much, my cousin told my other cousin that I hated it.
Oh no.
And then apparently she said, well, if he hates it so much, I'm not going to get him anything ever again. And then I remember I also had a Spawn toy, and I remember trying to make her feel better by making Star Child beat up Spawn, and it hurt my heart because I love Spawn so much. I was like, he should never beat Spawn.
This is gonna hurt you.
Just like, and then a dramatic fall.
I'm sorry, Spawn.
What's the creator of Spawn? Fuck.
Why am I forgetting? McFarlane.
Yeah, something McFarlane.
Not Seth
I think it's
MacFarlane.
Mike
Sorry,
McFarlane.
Todd McFarlane.
Todd.
That was close.
Man,
Yeah, I think
you had
that's
to
you
resurrect
kind
him all
of
over again.
you kind of made me realize some things right now. Yeah,
Yeah, because I'm the opposite. I think that we didn't have a lot of money.
yeah,
Or I just have not experienced having a lot of things. Like we would get one good gift that would last us the year.
yeah.
Is a PlayStation or something.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it was just kind of clothes or small stuff. Which I'm grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's part of why I also love giving gifts is that we weren't always able to. And I'm still not always able to, but when I am, I don't necessarily try to get the most expensive thing, but it is it's kind of a thing where it's if I find something that I think is perfect, then within reason, I'm not spending thousands of dollars, but I've probably spent a couple $100 on a gift for somebody.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was alluding to earlier was I don't think I'm necessarily good at picking the perfect gift, but I'm good at interpreting gifts. I can pick a gift that someone may not expect, but they would enjoy. And that's why I'm often used as a reference for when one family member is trying to pick something for another family member and they don't really understand their vibes. Our little brother is really hard to read.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll be like, well, if you can't think of anything custom Xbox controller stuff, he's super into video games, he's super into Slipknot, I know the various things that he's all the time into, or I pay attention when we go to Frankenstein's or swap meets and he likes a particular style of design shirt. I remember that and I tell people where to get that stuff. Or our uncle's into ska and reggae, and I remember it was I picked out a gift for the first time. I was maybe 12. And I wanted to pick a gift for each family member. And for him, I literally just got a Bob Marley bracelet. It was carved out of wood. And it was a silly $5 gift, but he wore that for 3 years till it broke.
Damn.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you were thoughtful enough to get him that. But
What did I get you for Christmas?
nothing.
I got you a shirt.
Oh, yeah, you did. So anyways, what are we talking about today, Ryan?
Today we're kind of talking about machismo, but not just not just toxic masculinity, kind of the overall arc of like what's considered masculine or traditional masculine for Latinos. Because I remember Ricky and I were kind of having a conversation about like the traditional dynamics that are kind of set up, and how like there is an aspect of like I believe that even when someone is raised very traditional, you can't help that feeling when something doesn't make sense to you. And so even if it doesn't evolve completely, there is a version of like the idea that in most Mexican households, like women cook, men barbecue, but they both make tacos.
Yeah.
You know, like, or this idea of like that's there's still that understanding of equal partnership and like equal respect for one another.
At best case,
it's. I don't know what you're trying to say.
Well, I think you were kind of talking about how some of the machismo stuff is like basically the issue with it is like subservience to the father.
Okay, so here's like, I think first we have to define what machismo is, especially within the Latin community. There's machismo and then there's Marianismo, which is like two kind of coexisting. I don't know what to call it, like philosophy. It's not a philosophy necessarily. I compare it to very similar to essentially it's the patriarchy. Essentially it's gender roles, right?
Right.
So like machismo is a man being a protector, a provider, very manly, and a lot of times what that's turned into is like it's left an opening for men to be very domineering. It's all about strength and dominance, right? And then for women, Marianismo is like the exact opposite. It's like being subservient to the man, to letting the man be the man, and then you filling your role to be the woman. I wouldn't compare it to what you just said about like the barbecuing and the cooking like stuff. I see where you're going with that, but it is very much like it's creating a hierarchy of like that's why I compare it to the caste system. It's like the man's at top. It's a patriarchal mindset essentially. The thing is that like it's very prominent in like Latin communities and Latin culture, but when you step outside of that, I'm kind of jumping ahead where I want to in this conversation because it's so closely associated, especially because machismo sound like, I'm pretty sure it comes from Spain, right? Macho, it's like it sounds Spanish, so it's heavily associated with like being Latino, and it is sexism exists in Latin America and in the United States, all over the world, right? Yeah. But in particular, it's associated this idea of being machismo, being an arrogant man, like being a very like, it's the feisty Latina, it's the, well, that's outside of it, but like it's being this like hot-headed man and like always ready to fight and like and dominate, right? When you take a step outside of that, you see that ideology is like prevalent all over the world, and it's weird that white people associate machismo with Latinos and people of color, especially because I feel like a lot of these ideologies come from like a Western mindset of like, and they spread these ideas throughout the world. And I feel like I just want to kind of get it out of the way and say like white people benefit from progress in a way that like a lot of like people of color don't, particularly like throughout the world where like this idea of traditional or like conservative, like traditional values exists in a lot of these countries, like, or I know it's not a country, it's a continent, but like African countries, Latin American countries, India, these ideas. I know it's not clear cut, but it's weird that like white people will go out and like spread these ideologies throughout, and then like kill people if they don't like
Right.
live by these ideologies, and then go back home and then be like, oh, actually we might have done a bad thing, and then turn around and be like, can you see what these brown people are doing? They're so backwards. Like
they're able to
behind the
abandon the
times.
things that they established.
Right.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. Like, there's something to be said about that kind of developing culturally and its connection to religion. Like in the Middle East with religion police, that was a thing that didn't always exist. And the time before that is like actually so recent that it kind of surprises people that don't understand it. Like, the religious police have only existed for, I want to say, like 80 years, maybe less. In the 40s and 50s and 60s, they weren't like that. People were allowed to dress more modernly for the time, and there was a lot more freedom to like do things that you would see people doing like in America and in England. And then it kind of regime change forced political change, which forced cultural change, and then all of a sudden those things are looked down upon because that separates them from like us in America, like on both sides.
Right. And I kind of, like I said, I'm kind of jumping ahead and talking about this part of things because I definitely don't want to excuse it. It is a fact that it exists amongst Latinos. Like,
Yeah.
even in the United States, like there's still this idea of one like Mexican culture, of traditional culture, conservative culture is very much like genders have a role. Like,
Yeah.
the woman does this, the man does this, and it's an expectation that this will happen. And if
Right.
you're acting outside of this expectation, then you're not a good man, you're not a good woman, you're not a good wife, you're whatever, whatever.
You get written off.
Yeah. Or judged or whatever. I just want to kind of, before I don't get a chance to say it, I'm just like, yeah, we're going to talk about it in the context of like our own community, but at the same time, like, white people don't get a pass at this. Because I know, gotta be very careful the way that I say this, but like hearing white people talk about like their partners, like being in an interracial relationship, and like their experiences going to like a traditional Mexican household versus like what they're used to. I don't know. I can't let that slide.
No, I mean, that's part of what I'm saying is like even in Mexico, those traditions didn't always exist for the indigenous people that were there before, the people that were developing there. That's the thing that kind of stems from religious beliefs being enforced by the invading like white civilizations, like the Spanish and the English and the European people that came through religion taught them like the morals that they're supposed to follow to be of like a society and not what they were before,
Right.
which was purposefully perceived to be less than a regular society.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't read a lot about that, but it's interesting to see that could have been established, not just to like put their system in place, but to even separate the power and the unity between the men and women in these communities that existed before them.
Yeah, I think there was like a sense of like the men hunted and the women got like, but it is very much, first of all, like many indigenous cultures had like matriarchal societies where the women were in leadership. On top of that, there was a lot more like what you were referring to is like, the idea that everybody pulls their weight and like, yeah,
Exactly.
you might have a role, but it is to benefit the greater good. Nobody's necessarily above each other. It's more of like, these are the things that we can do, and like we're working as a unit.
Yeah, and even in like, it's hard to say, of course, because a lot of the history was eroded, but those roles were kind of naturally, I want to say, based off of the knowledge that I have off of my current memory, like right now in this moment, were prevalent, but they weren't the standard necessarily. Like with hunting and gathering is essentially like who was capable and who was willing. It didn't really matter. Those specific rules didn't matter because they didn't exist yet, at least for those people.
It's different from tribe to tribe, like community to community, for sure.
That's what I'm saying. Like there definitely are. I mean, I think we're saying the same thing. I just am using different words.
Hey, y'all, we want to take a second to thank our sponsor, LegacyTeasandSpices.com. It's a company run by our mom, Angel Mesqua. Thanks, Mom. To celebrate the new year, 2023, Legacy Teas and Spices is offering 23% off all orders. All you have to do is use the code UP23. I'm going to tell you guys something. Tea is fucking delicious. Coffee can suck my balls. All you have to do is use code UP23 at LegacyTeasandSpices.com, where you can check out a wide variety of delicious teas and spices. I don't know if I told you guys this, but I'm pretty important, and I have a signature tea. Ryan doesn't have one because we all hate Ryan. You can check out my signature blend, Domsy the Bombsy, which is a black tea roasted mate base with coconut and cacao nibs. It's fucking delicious, all right? You guys like me, you hate Ryan, you like my tea, use code UP23 at LegacyTeasandSpices.com. Try it now. I thought that was great. I feel like the conversation, like the biggest thing I think we can start with is like the idea of like, does your girl fix you a plate?
Oh, right. That is not an expectation in my family. So it's interesting that we're going to have different perspectives on this. That is not an expectation in my family. It's never even a thought as far as I'm concerned if she fixes me a plate or not. And if anything, it looks bad on me if I don't fix her a plate. But also, my dad's not... I'm not trying to make this sad. My dad hasn't been alive since like 93. And he was very much that person that would establish that culture in our family. Oh. And he was that person. And he was a very strict person. He was very religious, and he's exactly one of the people that would be this way in the toxic sense. And so it's like, I think because he was not alive to keep this established, that is not a thing in our family.
Yeah, a lot of that probably broke down, and especially you had a big family, so it's probably like everybody kind of had to pitch in anyway.
Yeah. So I think in a way, like, that stuff still echoed. Like, you could see, like, it's interesting because, like, the older my brothers are and the younger we are, you could see how that started to die out. Because my older brothers were raised with him. Mm-hmm. Some of them into adulthood, into young adulthood. So they've learned to curb that, but that's still stronger in them. And it's still even in me because, of course, I learned from them. Even though I wasn't raised by him. So it's like, there's still parts of things where like I still work, like I still try to be conscious of it. Like some of it's probably subconscious now that's left. And like for instance, like the whole fixing plate thing, my mom is that person. She grew up in Mexico. Right. And she learned that you take care of everybody. And in fact, she didn't keep going to school so she could take care of her siblings at a young age. So like she has that energy of like, I fix you a plate, I cook for you, I clean for you, even if you say no. And I feel like I had to fight that energy of like fixing you a plate. I saw that eventually as a bad thing of like trying to make someone you date do that to you.
It is weird. Go ahead, Ryan.
So that's more what I was alluding to at the very beginning of like, this thing is kind of been naturally sewn into just the culture that we're raised in regardless, and it still trickles down from generation. But because I said sewn into.
Regardless.
Regardless, fool.
But even then, like, you can't help if something doesn't feel like it makes sense to you. Like I know some my age, some older, some in family, some in friends, women who were raised to learn to cook because that's like what you're supposed to do. But regular cooking doesn't bring them joy. And it kind of evolves with how they develop their love language, which is why I was bringing that up earlier, of like, but they still enjoy cooking for special occasions. Like they can't help but want to do that to show love. But like regular, like mundane, everyday cooking is like it's a chore to them. It's a thing that they have to do to maintain living.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily, and so they might be more inviting to like a man that enjoys cooking every day rather than someone who expects them to make their meals for them every day.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the expectation. It's hard for us because we grew up, our parents were divorced. So we essentially had a single mom for like our whole life. Like our dad was in the picture, but we didn't spend nearly as much time with him as our mom.
Right.
Oh man, I just thought of something. No, well, here's the thing: is that I have experienced like machismo, and I won't go into too much detail because it's not necessarily my story to tell, but it did affect us in that. For a while, I think this influenced my mom's decision to not date anyone for a long time because she dated this guy that was a very toxic person, very machismo, very like I'll just say it was abusive, and we were in that situation for a long time, and it was super hard to get rid of this guy, because he was relentless, and that's how a lot of these people are. Like a lot of these men that the thing is that when you read the definition of like what like separating the practice from the values of machismo, like the values of it, at this point in time, it's easy to say that it's unnecessary for sure. But the values of it on paper sound very positive, right? You take care of your family, you provide, you're a protector, you're powerful, you're strong, right? It sounds like you're trying to be a respectable person, but it's one of those things where it's like respect isn't automatic, it's earned or whatever.
Right.
Respect isn't given, it's earned.
Yeah.
It's like that kind of ideology of like, the problem with machismo culture is that it is thrust upon people, right? It's like you are going to force people to show you respect, and by creating a toxic, abusive, hostile environment where your people are living in terror.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's a thing of like your actions are justified, right? And I will say this in the way that obviously it affects women and children first, in that if you break this expectation of like what this person is owed because of they have a job and they're paying rent or whatever it is, which is crazy because I'm thinking about this one guy in particular, right? And the thing is that he wanted all of that stuff, but he didn't contribute shit to the household. My mom still paid for everything for us, right? My mom still cooked for us and like took us to school and took care of us. It was like having this like
adult child,
like a bully, like a boarder essentially living with us, like our family.
Yeah, like I remember, I don't even think he fully lived with us. He would this is just based on my memory, and at this time I may be like 7 or 8, but it was a thing of like, from his perspective, he's just the boyfriend, but at the same time he's the man of the house when he's there.
No, that's exactly what it was. And the thing is that this fucking piece of shit, dude, and I won't say where he's from because I don't want to sound like all the men from here, but he was Latin American. He was from Latin America, and so I don't know, he carried that with him, this like machismo energy. This is what he was taught. This is what he's owed. And there was it was crazy because, like you said, he was the man of the house, and we were expected to fit his expectation of like how we were supposed to behave, and we were constantly compared to how his kids were. I never once in my life met his kids.
Neither did I.
They were just like, they could have been like, he could have been making them up for all I cared, and it was like, my kids don't act like this. But it was like, it's a tool of like abuse to like pitch you against something, right? That we were always missing the mark of like how we're supposed to behave. And if we misbehaved, it was taken out on my mom. And this guy was such a piece of shit that like I was probably 9 years old and I could tell that this fool was embarrassed by his actions. That's the thing. That's the thing with like abusers is like they're like small people, like small spirits inside, right? They need to do this. That whenever you hear somebody like trying to be like dominating and then they're going out of the way to justify their actions, it's like this is a person with a small spirit. Yeah. And like because they're embarrassed by the reality of all of the terrible shit that they've done.
Yeah, like deep down, I genuinely believe like deep down they know that they're lying, but they can't. It becomes a defense mechanism. It becomes a shell where they can't admit that they're in the wrong, because, and even if they don't ever admit, they also at the same like they can't even evolve. They have to live in that shell because
they can't admit to making mistakes, because that means how many years have they made a mistake for?
Right. Exactly. And it's like, you know, I think the shell is a good metaphor because it, like you said, it keeps them from growing. They stay small because they're hiding, because that shell is what people see, and that shell is what they think they need to show people is you know, that tough exterior that's expected. That's what they're told is defining. And so
it creates this expectation of what you're owed if you behave a certain way. And it does two things for somebody. It makes them think that they're owed something, and then it also deflects their misdeeds, right?
Yeah.
So like it's used to justify they deserve something because they work hard, or because they're whatever it is. Like all of these things, it creates a situation where you're like, oh, I fucking but like I do all this, I do so much, so anything that I want I can take.
Yeah.
Right. And like we kind of know what we're talking about. It's like machismo culture. It's a thing that's been passed down, and honestly, it's sad to see. It was a weird thing for me to learn, but I still see it in certain ways that I think we were, us growing up, me and Ryan, were kind of, in some ways, we were protected from that. Not necessarily protected, but we missed out on a lot of that experience because we're all boys with my mom. You know, our parents were separated, so like we didn't experience a lot of that like machismo ideology, but I still think it came out in certain ways, especially when it came to dating.
Yeah.
And how our parents felt about the girls or the women that we were dating. Or about what we were owed in a relationship, like what we could put up with in a relationship, or how much of ourselves we would give to a relationship, right? It was very much like don't give up yourself for a woman, kind of a thing. There's still like I said, there's still some of that kind of bleeds through, but for the most part I feel like we missed out on a lot of that experience. So it was kind of interesting for me to learn about it as I get older. I feel like it's like a thing you hear about today and you're like, that's a thing, like you still do that, like that's a thing, like that's not like 1940s, like and that it's so widespread.
No, yeah. I mean, I definitely hear what you're saying. It is something that I acknowledge with our own mom, because I believe that she was raised in a similar manner of like my mom has this thing where, or let me separate it from my personal situation for a second. I think that, and that's what I was saying, where sometimes people can't help but subconsciously want change, where there's the familial expectation and then there's the personal revelation and like want. So like from a familial side, now using my mom as an example, she can't help but want to, like when we come over or when we visit or when it's our birthday or it's a special holiday, she can't help but want to like cook for us our favorite
and serve
food.
us.
Yeah, like when our brother Anthony visits, it's pozole. When
Whatever his favorite foods are.
Yeah. When it means lasagna. I'm just letting people know so they know what to send me. But at the same time, she raised us to learn to cook for ourselves, to be self-sufficient. Not self-sufficient men specifically, but self-sufficient people. Because in her mind, it's like that's also a thing of just being an adult, being a person, is sometimes you need to be able to do things for yourself. Because I remember her thing was always like, what happens if something happens to her and we have to take care of each other. That's kind of like one of the things that I think was at the beginning of it, and then it became a thing of like, it was also a thing of like, us had an internal thing where we wanted to help when we got older. All of us fell in love with cooking, and we also like wanted to cook, or sometimes like it gave her a break if one of us cooked breakfast or one of us cooked dinner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so those two things developed kind of together. So we had some understanding of it, but it also at the same time, we were kind of raised to be individuals.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that too. Even with a lot of the stuff that I think, how I read, especially because people have seen my mom on the podcast, and like I don't want people to come at her because, I love my mom, but she's older and she has certain outlooks on stuff. She gets very uncomfortable when we talk about white people.
Every time it comes on screen, we just like bleep it, like her, like.
Yeah, but I do think a lot of it, there's some stuff of like, there's like misogyny that kind of bleeds through, but a lot of it is my mom thinking about being a survivor,
right?
Not just of like abuse, but like in general, like having to survive, like having to take care of yourself. It's almost like those movies where you see like the guy that takes like a kid into the wilderness and like teaches him how to like be in the world, like how to live and how to hunt and how to gather. Like a lot of ways, that's kind of how it felt with my mom, because she has had all of these experiences where she's been burned before. And so for us, we happen to be men, but I think a lot of it just comes down to like, you need to be able to take care of yourself. You can't rely on anyone, kind of a thing. So I won't spend too much time on talking about my mom, but
yeah, she was Piccolo and you guys were Gohan.
Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna say that it reminded me of the movie Hannah. We're the girl and she's Eric Bana, but
probably
it's a very specific action reference.
He said one that I got, so we're gonna go with that one. I don't know. Here's the thing: is that it's super hard for us. I feel like, because I think the three of us and Josh the American, welcome back. Thanks for being here, Josh. Thanks for having me back.
Welcome back. He's been here the whole time. You were.
Yeah, I was saying welcome back as him to me, because he didn't say that when I got here.
I like that it started as a compliment and became a criticism.
It is interesting because I feel like, the way that all of us have grown up, like we don't have that mentality, so it's kind of hard for us to really talk about that.
Yeah, but there's going to be like echoes and like smaller things from that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like just some of the things you've already said made me rethink some things, like of like how much you need to give of yourself for what you get from them. And it's like, I think that's something I have to think about in myself, like remind myself, because it's like, I'll give, but I also am guarded. Like, like I still, like, there's probably more to it than just machismo stuff. Like, people have their traumas and stuff, but I've had to work on that, like, as candidly, like, to open up more to people I'm close to because of it.
Yeah.
And that's probably because, not just from protecting myself, but I probably was shown that.
Right.
And maybe I don't consciously connect those things. But that's what I was shown.
Right. And I do think there's also a thing of the intent is there. It's sometimes just misinterpreted. Like me being autistic, I had an issue with regulating emotions as a kid. And so my parents wanted to help me with that, but the only thing they knew was boys don't cry.
Yeah.
And that became the rule as a kid. But it was also I knew that they were just trying to help, and they just for the most part didn't know what was happening, because I was a very dramatic kid. I would apparently disown the family every time. I was upset.
So Ryan used to do this thing when he was 4 or 5, right, where he would get mad at you. And he would get... I was a shitty kid to Ryan. I was a shitty brother to Ryan for sure. And as a kid, I would pick on him because of the way that he would react. So I would make him mad. And often he started doing this thing where he would go, "I'm not your brother anymore." And I thought that was hilarious. But the funniest time that it happened was that I don't even know what the context was, but my grandma did something to upset Ryan, where she didn't let him do something. So he kind of stormed through the living room and went, "I'm not your grandma anymore."
I love that image.
I mean, I sound eloquent. For a 5-year-old,
Yeah.
I know a lot of big words.
It's just interesting that at one point you were the grandma.
Yeah. Ryan has real grandma energy for sure.
You always got snacks.
How did it become this? This is not where we're going right now.
Yeah, but we can talk in circles about all this stuff. I know on our Discord people have questions, so we should get to those because we've been talking for a while.
Yeah. And some of them we might have already covered, but we're going to do our best to do as many as we can.
Yeah. Josh, who's the first question from, and what is the question?
Well, I'm going to paraphrase a bit. It's from _chubbypanda. I'm just going to read it. It says, "I feel like men are precious in the Hispanic Latin culture, and women are caregivers. I grew up in a very whitewashed Latin family with 5 sisters, and my mom taught us not to cater to any man. But when I see my aunts, they're very into machismo, men are the boss culture, and they get mad if I don't serve my boyfriend. My boyfriend is first generation with a Mexican mom who caters to his every need besides whipping his ass, which I'm sure she could if she would. I've had to tell him that I'm not his mom, and if he wants, he can go live back with her. So I honestly am curious how you guys dealt with that in relationships. So basically, it's talking about being cherished by our moms because we're Latinos and we're cherished by our moms.
Yeah.
And taking that energy and transferring that into a functional relationship.
She said wiping ass, and that's so funny. But because honestly, it'd be like that sometimes. But yeah, that's a thing. I made a conscious I think I've kind of talked about this already on this episode, but I had to make a conscious choice to fight that because that's who my mom wanted to be. Is she did that to all of us, I believe. She cared. I think she probably still had more expectations on my sisters for sure, but she still cared. She would still serve. There's stories of some Latina moms would be like serve their sons, and the daughters would be like, "What about my place?" So they'll be like, "Serve yourself," And it's very TikTok. You see it on TikTok. But my mom would serve all of us. She wanted to know all of us were loved. So there was still that at least. But I also saw that she would cater the boys to the point of we wouldn't develop skills if we didn't fight against that.
There definitely was. It's very interesting because in our experience, our mom's side of the family, all of all
the children were boys.
All the cousins were boys. So but none of us were expected or asked to cook whenever we had family events.
Yeah.
All of my tias were cooking, and then we would all just be hanging out, whatever.
Yeah, but because of the particular ratio, it was more of just a maternal to adolescent thing where it was our parents were cooking for us. And so I think that's why it never really registered to us that was the expectation.
I don't want to say that it wasn't there. Because we only had one.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It wasn't that it wasn't there, but it was that.
But yeah, maybe it didn't register to us that's why it was just the older people.
That's our
mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, Yeah, it was interesting because I think like when we started getting older and started having girlfriends, or like certain cousins had girlfriends, that they would do the thing where like they would have to hang out with the tias and like cook and stuff like that. So that stuff was there. I think like I said, it's interesting because I feel like a lot of what I experienced in like what my expectations from a partner are not so much rooted in like being Latino, but in just like misogyny in general.
Right.
Because there are things that I feel like, we were talking earlier about how I saw this video that I thought was super weird, that like it was like a TikTok from a woman. It was a joke TikTok, but it was like, when you give your boyfriend your debit card before you enter the restaurant so he can pay.
Yeah.
It's like this thing of like protecting the man's ego. Like the ego is the most important thing.
I think that's hilarious because most of the women that I know have custom cards. So I'm imagining like a dude being like, I got this. And then he puts down like Angelica and there's butterflies on it and like flowers. And it clearly says like Angelica or Jasmine.
Yeah.
I think that's hilarious.
It's funny because like the more we talk about this, the more I realize like there's still some of that in me. Like we're like, yeah, probably still gonna need time to work on stuff. But it's like, I put like no one's putting that pressure on me, but that's what I observed, that like maybe that's just also how the patriarchy hurts men more than they realize too, of like this pressure where like, oh, I do have to support you even if I don't expect a lot out of you because I know that's toxic. I still think my role, which is also still toxic, by putting that pressure on me, which makes me probably a worse partner because I'm stressed out and now I'm agitated, and it's like I gotta take care of you even if I get nothing.
Yeah, no, I feel exactly what you're talking about. That's what I was going to say too, is that I feel like it has prevented me from like seeking out relationships or dating people, and it's affected people that I have dated in the past where I feel emasculated. Like I can say that now of like, oh, I don't have much going on, or I'm struggling financially. And so I carry that energy, that stress. And that's not to say that as a man, you shouldn't have your shit together and that you should just like accept that a woman's going to take care of you. Like you should be able to contribute, right? Like you should be able to take care of yourself and contribute to the relationship.
Yeah. Like I think it's something we talked about before. Like it's not that these roles are inherently toxic. It's that there should be a choice and a conversation on meeting each other's needs.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that, like, because it's been established already that I'm on the queer spectrum. I identify as pansexual, and that's still something that I deal with regardless. Like that feeling. God damn it.
Regardless.
Like even just recently, I'm in a situation where I'm just focusing on the things that I'm working on so that I can keep moving forward for myself. Mm-hmm. And so I've literally had to have that conversation with both sides, where I have to be like, look, it's not that I'm not down for this. It's just right now I'm in a position where I feel like I'm going to drop the ball and it's going to be a thing later. I know that you don't want these things to matter, but in some points, like...
The thing is, I think there's a lot of like work that needs to be done on that kind of insecurity, because again, that's why I preface it by saying like, it's not that you shouldn't have your shit together, but you shouldn't let it stress you out. Because if somebody is showing interest in you, as long as you're being honest with where you're at, because there's a lot of people, a lot of men that will play this game like if they have everything together, and still there's like they're leeching, that's an issue. But I think you approach things with vulnerability and with honesty, and like for me in my position where it's like we're trying to do something with this podcast, I'm trying to do something with my comedy, I'm trying to do something with my photography. I'm not where I want to be or where I know I could be, but you still put in the work to get there, and that and it's I don't know. I'm trying to be very careful because I don't want it to be a thing of like, well, you have to have something going on for you. It's more just like, don't be a leech.
Yeah.
Like, don't be a bad partner, you know. And then, real quick, I'm sorry, but I want to say the opposite of that has affected me in the past. Not in the way where it would demand things, but I think I made people uncomfortable because there was a time in my life where, like, I was making good money for my age, and for, like, I was in a pretty good position, so I would pay for a lot and I would buy a lot of gifts, or I would, like, do things, and I don't know if it's necessarily the same thing, but I do think, like, that it comes from that stress of being of wanting to be the provider and wanting to be seen a certain way as somebody that is I don't know, like, capable, like
a man,
like, seen as a real man.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And I think I understand what you're saying. Of, like, sometimes it's even if it's not producing right now, like, as long as you're working to better yourself, that's, you know, you should be not happy with that, but, like, or not content with that, but, like, that you're doing as much as you can.
Yeah.
And
because I feel like I've gotten to a place where, like, I feel like I'm not broke anymore with the job I have, and it's like, this is new to me.
You're still figuring it out for yourself.
Yeah.
I'm still figuring that for myself, but I'm realizing all of a sudden that makes it easier for me to be there for people or be better to people, like, just be a better version of myself. And part of it makes me think, like, oh, it's not just because of where I was, it's because of how I perceived where I was and what I needed to offer. And that it's very timely. It made me realize that, I think I'm valid.
Right.
More than and it's like this is a very current thing happening to me.
Right.
Now I think I'm more valid, and now I think I actually have something to offer.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, as the stress of, like, that image of yourself in your head is like having to have something to offer.
Yeah.
You should be able to function as a person, and it's not because you are the man. It's
exactly.
Like and here's the thing. I'm gonna fucking trademark that. I keep saying here's the thing, but, like, there are certain relationships, and there are people that enjoy, it comes down to love language or whatever it comes down to. There are women that want to be taken care of. There are men that want to be taken care of a woman. Mm-hmm. I think what it comes down to is, like, you're talking about communication of what is expected and what people are doing. But the big thing, I think, is when it becomes toxic, when it becomes a weapon of, like, I'm going to provide this, and that means I don't, like, the men that are like, I don't want my woman to work. Yeah. Like, that's an issue.
That can be an issue, because that could either be, I'm trying to take care of you and give you the life you want, or I'm going to make you feel the power and balance I have in this relationship.
Exactly.
And those are two very different things.
It's one thing to want to be able to you literally just said it, but wanting to be a provider. But when it becomes, I don't want my woman to work, like, I don't know if a lot of men realize the imbalance that creates. Of, like, maybe they do, and maybe that's why they want it, but it's like, you're creating a situation where a woman is forced into financial dependence, right, on you, and that's why a lot of women don't want that. Like, they want to be able to work,
and some guys insist they do, but
literally until the 90s, women couldn't own credit cards. They needed their husband's approval to open a credit card.
Yeah. In some states, that's still a thing.
The way that women independence has been limited historically is fucking wild. But I think that's why a lot of people, you hear things about, like, oh, I'm just trying to be a good man, I'm just trying to provide, and I'm just trying to, and if I'm doing this, like, these quote unquote, like, high value men of, like, having that's why it's dangerous, is because you're building up in your head all the stuff that you have to offer, but that creates like a dangerous expectation.
Right. I mean, and I think that's where how I try to think about it, where it's like it's not because being this is something that can be sometimes hard to explain to men that think like that, where it's like, you know, this is how men are, this is how men have been, this is why this is important. Or it's like for me, the goal shouldn't be how can I be the best man. The goal should be as an individual, how can I make sure that I'm doing what I need for myself? And then in a relationship, how can I make sure that I'm contributing equally to this union?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being a man has nothing to do with either. Or the thought shouldn't be, I'm doing this because I'm a man. It should be that I'm doing this because it's what's best for me and my partner.
Yeah, the whole masculinity thing about being a man or a real man or whatever, it's like that is something that's kind of stupid. It's just like, be a good person.
Exactly.
Like you just said it. But yeah,
sure did.
That's kind of, it's something that I definitely do still deal with in dating, and it's just something you have to kind of you don't have to have it figured out, but you have to like try to be aware of it
and try to be candid, like even just coming to those realizations and sharing it. Like a lot of dudes won't do that because of the masculinity stuff. Like me being this candid is like wild to me. Like even a few years ago, it would have been really hard for me to open up, let alone on camera, you know?
Right.
But giving people the choice to know where you are and what you're dealing with, if you want to define it as masculine, go for it. Because like that, what are men supposed to be? Strong and brave? If it's brave to be vulnerable and honest and letting people hurt you with where you are, give that to them. Because it also gives them the opportunity to either be there for you, help you, or hurt you. And that all probably needs to happen for the better of all, for your relationship. Of like, if she's going to hurt, like it's just from like a hetero point of view, like she's a person that can hurt you and so are you. And it's like, you both need to be where you are to either figure that out and grow together, or realize maybe you guys aren't good for each other.
Right. Yeah. Because that's what I was saying before. Some people do want those roles. Like some people are comfortable in a setting where some women do want to like stay at home, and and that's their contribution to the relationship. I'm not here to push somebody in either direction. Yeah. But I think there should be an awareness and a conversation around of like expectations and like the idea of what is owed.
Yeah. Some moms, like some moms are business moms, and you know that from just talking to them. Like they're like, really, they should be that way. If only one of them is going to be at work, sometimes you see that it should be the mom. Right. Like it's obvious sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like they could figure that out.
Yeah. Real quick, because I do want to get to the question. I think we have time for one more question.
All right. This question is from Craftiest Chavez. I feel like there's always discussion on toxic masculinity, but I never hear anything about healthy masculinity or what to replace toxic behaviors with. Can such a thing as healthy masculinity exist?
Personally, I do believe that kind of goes into what we were just talking about, but it being about if framing it as this is what a good man is defined as helps you understand it, then I think I'm okay with that. But the goal should be like how to be a better person, how to be what you need to be for yourself and what you need to be for your family, not because you are the man, but because that's what you want to do as a part of that dynamic regardless.
I think part of it is like, if you have to redefine it, do that. But it's also like, what's the simplest thing that makes, so like it's easy to say be a better person or grow, but it's like, what's one of the simplest things that helps you do that? Is not just being vulnerable, but what helps you get closer to people that deserve that, or have earned that, or have a need for that from you that you want to give that to.
Right.
Because sometimes you're there, but you're not close with them. And that's what humans are. We're social and we want to connect. And that's what a lot of issues stem from, of like people not feeling connected.
Right.
So part of feeling connected is by letting people know where you are, good and bad. Letting people know where you are, good and bad, letting them be for you or letting them disappoint you, and then working from there. Because it's like, that's what we are. We're limited and not limited at the same time.
Real quick, can somebody look up like I want to kind of define like masculinity and femininity.
And femininity. Well, masculinity is qualities or attributes regarded as characteristics of men or boys. But are you talking about machismo?
No. I don't want to. So here. What I'm trying to get at. What I would like to address is that there's masculine energy and there's feminine energy, right? And I think just like there's testosterone and estrogen, whatever. Like
just
if you
for the record, femininity is the same exact thing, but for women and girls.
So there was a conversation around. I forget. I should have looked this up before, but I didn't think we were going to talk about this. But like. Masculinity, when you emasculate somebody, it's like it's not necessarily you're taking away their strength.
Yes.
Right. And it doesn't necessarily have to do it shouldn't necessarily have to do with like it's a man being emasculated. It's that you're weakening somebody's image. We associate that with men because we have this idea that men should be masculine, and I'm sure I don't want to step around like the literal definitions that we have available to us, but like all people have masculine energy and all people have feminine energy. I think the healthy masculinity thing is, I don't want to say that it is feminine energy. I'm not saying that's the way you be healthy masculine, but also I think it's an acceptance of who you are.
Yeah.
Is what it kind of comes down to, because there are quote unquote masculine women and feminine men.
Yeah. And
I think it's healthy masculinity comes from a confidence in who you are as an individual.
Right.
Regardless of how quote unquote masculine or feminine you are, and not being afraid to do simple things like wear pink or eat a banana in public. Like, not that that's feminine energy, but I just mean like cry, be open and be vulnerable, and like have a spectrum of emotions that you can display, not just being angry, having healthy masculinity. There is something about like being a protector and being a provider. I think there's certain things that are innate to just being human, of like broad strokes. And look, call me out if I'm saying something problematic, for sure. But like the sense of like mothers are nurturing, men are protectors. You see that
like healers and protectors kind of thing.
Right. If you're protecting your family, they shouldn't be afraid of you.
Yeah.
I think that's a good example of toxic masculinity. I think healthy masculinity is being that provider, if that's what's important to you and that's what's important to your family, and you're doing so in a way that's healthy without having like your family should feel loved and should not like be afraid of you. That's healthy masculinity. Being able to be like for instance, I'm not a very big guy, but we have a friend, Armando Torres, who's 6'5", and he will use his stature to like help. He's a comedian. When he's at open mics, like women like go to him when a guy is giving them the creeps, and they'll just like go stand next to him, knowing that he will help them. Like it's been a thing of like women will go up to him that maybe he's not friends with, but they're like, oh, so and so told me that like I can go to you if I need help in a situation like this.
Right.
And him being that person, of being able to like be a protector in that way, to me that's healthy masculinity. Right. That's an example. I'm not saying like I don't want to say anything about any individual person, but that action, that situation is to me an example of healthy masculinity, right?
Yeah, be a relief, not a
right. Be a relief,
not a source of stress.
I did also want to comment on something you brought up that I think goes into the second final question of viewing masculine and feminine as connected to aesthetic. But before I say that, what's the final question?
Just ask a question. All right, this question is from Coffee. Do you feel like there were any hobbies, interests, or ideals you had in the past that you had to drop due to pressure to adhere to the machismo mindset and to the pressure to present as masculine as possible? Would you ever get back into those things you dropped now that you recognize it's not inherently...
I before we get into like actual like hobbies and interests, I want to like say like two little things of like how I feel like this ideology like permeates culture. Is like one, when I was a kid, I used to love Blink-182, the band. One of the things that they did was like Mark Hoppus had a pink bass, and like the thing was like trying to make pink cool. And there was like a phase of like the early aughts where like there were shirts that said pink is the new black, and like men would like and when I started wearing pink,
real men wear pink,
all that. But it wasn't even that. This was before real men wear pink. It was just straight up like men wearing pink. And like I used to like how I was like influenced by these other dudes who were like, I'm gonna wear pink, I have a pink base, like fuck it. I used to ask for like gray and pink shoes. Like I used to always wear Chucks, and I had these specific shoes that had like gray. Right. They were gray on the sides and pink down the middle, and like those were my favorite shoes. And like people in my family were like, I don't know about this. My mom thought I was gay because I would like to wear pink, and I wasn't like, oh, I'm, you know, it had nothing to do with anything. Honestly, it's a pretty stupid thing because I was like, oh, these guys, like, it was kind of the stuff that I talk about on the Patreon where it was contrarian, where I was like, I was doing it for the wrong reasons for sure, because I was just like, oh, I have something to prove, but I totally missed the message. So I was doing a good thing, but missing the message on the whole thing in general. But like wearing pink, like wearing certain colors, wearing like dressing a certain way. And another thing was like, it's hard to see. I'm going to stand up and do it so like they could see it on camera. But I used to do this thing where I would stim like this. Like, sorry for saying stim, but I would like when I would.
That's what it is.
I know, but I don't want to.
He doesn't want a stolen valor on the
Yeah, but I would do this thing when I would walk where I would like do this, like I was playing a trumpet. And like, but I would walk like this with my hand out. In my brain, I'm like this, like I'm holding a trumpet.
Your hand higher. But
when I would walk, my hand would be out like this. And I would be like walking like that.
Oh yeah. I got mean Latino family, dog.
Yeah, and I would walk like this. I would just be walking, and like people would tell me shit. My dad would tell me stuff. My girlfriend in high school would be like, "Don't walk like that." Like get mad, like slap my hand. Wow. Like don't walk like that. Like but that's what I'm saying. Like this is how far the fear of like your boyfriend's gay.
Yeah.
You know, or I have a gay son. Or you know, our family has grown from that a lot, but there's still like these things of like we were not our family was not impervious to gay fear,
right,
to homophobia.
And that goes into the last thing I wanted to try to cover before we bounce, which is there's this aesthetic aspect to masculine and feminine that is, I think, misunderstood. It's based on a concept that was essentially sold to people, and it was literally just to create an easier divide so that they can control regional like marketing. But for me, I believe this is my personal theory that it stems first from a divide of class, where things that were invented by men for men were seen as something that was only used by the higher class. Things like makeup, things like perfume, certain fabrics. Yeah, certain fabrics, certain conceptual things in fashion. Even like certain like gestures started off as being separate, meaning like these people are very leisurely, they don't have to provide, these men aren't real men because they aren't doing, like, they aren't working to earn their money, they're accepting things from their parents. And I believe that it started as a class separation where, because these things weren't considered masculine by like process of what's not elimination, process of proxy. By proxy, that means that they're inherently feminine.
Well, so I think what you're saying is, like, for instance, like Yankee Doodle Dandy, right?
Yes.
That was like dandies were these like rich, like upper echelon, like fancy boys, you know, and they were seen as like not being of the people, not being working class. So that, like,
exactly,
that's what you're saying. It's the whole idea of like, you don't have to work. It's like the idea, like when you hear men talk about how soft a man's hands are, like they lose respect for him, kind of a thing. Cause
and then subvertly, like those were things that were also being sold and associated with female quality, and so because of that subvert, you know, like even those terms of reference, like pansy and dandy, were meant to describe weak men, and eventually they were associated with describing effeminate men.
That's crazy, because have you ever heard of the Panzer tank? Come on. That thing is scary.
Was it pink?
The early models, yeah.
And so that's the thing of, like, you grow up with that, you know, boys are blue, girls are pink, but literally that's something that was only established maybe literally almost 100 years ago. That's not a lot of time. Like, before that wasn't a thing people worried about. Like, boys wore dresses, boys wore pink. Salmon and pink were common colors for, like, men to wear.
Before World War II, I think.
To actually answer the question, like, this was an interest of mine, but I had an uncle that, like, was embarrassed because he was really into, like, he was taking cosmetology classes. I don't know why. I don't know why I laughed, but that's why he was embarrassed, because people were laughing at him.
Yeah.
But I'm laughing because it's kind of a silly thing. It's unexpected, but he was like, he's very like into like punk and music and movies and stuff, and like he wanted to get into like fashion makeup because he was like, this is cool, this is like an art form. But to start that, you start with the basics and you like start going to cosmetology school, and it was like calling into question, like it's like a silly thing to like call into question, because it would have been fine if he even just wanted to work at Sephora, like who gives a fuck.
Right.
But the fact that he had like a goal and a vision of like what he wanted to accomplish in this field, and was made to like kind of be embarrassed, and props to him that he like pushed through a lot of that for a while and was like, no, I want to do this as an art form, I don't care what you guys think, like I'm gonna do it. You know, the interests that I had later were like embroidery, which is, you know, like crafting, like embroidery, sewing, making clothes, like that's stuff that I've wanted to do. And granted, I got those interests later on in life, so like definitely was easier for me. But it's a thing that I've experienced where like I can't talk about embroidery to other men, not because they look down on it, but just because it's like never occurred to them to like have that interest. So like a lot of the people that I talk to about it, a lot of the people that I follow that do these things are women,
right?
Like, because it's like the one area where like there's a reason why like crafts was never considered like a real art form, because it was associated with like women's like housework, like or like a hobby to like a woman to like pass the time by like embroidering something or like cross stitching something.
This is how you keep the kid out of daddy's office.
And it's becoming more and more like in recent years being seen as like a true art form, and it takes a lot of skill.
What do most of us watch on TikTok now? Like, like people doing arts and crafts,
like crocheting
stuff.
and art. Yeah.
I just want a cut of like that episode or that scene from Iron Giant. Arts and crafts. You got a problem with arts and crafts?
You got a problem? That's a good. Damn. TikTok idea. Ryan's a TikTok gold mine. But yeah, so that's my interest. I don't know if you guys had anything.
Well, I wanted to say, so in my personal experience, a lot of those things that I got interested in, I got into later, and the older I got, the better I got at defending myself. And I essentially, like, even if someone couldn't officially agree, they couldn't deny like my argument, and at the very least, like, I didn't give a shit if they didn't like it. Like, I also was fascinated for a while because I learned how to draw at a young age, and for a while I liked drawing dresses because I liked learning how to design stuff, and they weren't great, but they were decent. And when people would see that, I was like, okay, but like a lot of the top designers for like hundreds of years were straight men for the longest time. Like, these were men oriented things, and they have only been recently associated. And that's not to say that they're better at it, but I'm saying, like, the idea of subverting them to either side is not important. It's not realistic. It's like, as long as someone is good at it, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah, that's the thing I think with toxic masculinity is a thing where it's like, this is woman's work unless you're the best at it.
Yeah,
like,
that's
because
the
only
thing.
a man could be the best at anything.
Yeah,
That's why, like, women cook,
but men are chefs.
Yeah. And it's so it was the thing where it's like I always had the mentality of like, it doesn't matter because anyone could be good at these things, and as long as I want to be good at it, I don't give a fuck who's it's associated with.
Right.
And it's also like just fun to learn about. Like I for a while was into nail art because figuring out how to nail polish is not like paint. It's like very specific material. It's kind of like almost plastic in a way, where it like as it's drying it forms. So watching someone be able to build stuff with that was fascinating to me. Like, I love stuff like that in general.
Yeah, mine isn't like that it was feminine or perceived that way. It's that my interests, that I didn't get rid of them, but I would like not exactly share them with just anybody. And it was like video games and cartoons of like, that's child stuff.
Yeah, it's funny now to see somebody be embarrassed about liking cartoons or video games, but for a long time it was like, this guy's a loser.
It's not just that when we were younger that it was nerds weren't like cool at all. Mm-hmm. It's not just that. Like, that was a thing. Like, that's something we could talk about in the future, but like, it's not. But anyway, it's not just that I was kind of a nerd. It's that to certain men in my family, that was disappointing to see in me.
Right.
That I wasn't excited to toil, to build fences, to dig trenches for sprinklers, or to build tool sheds.
Right.
It's that as soon as I got a chance, I would go run to the Nintendo.
Yeah.
Or I would go watch cartoons.
Yeah.
And that was seen as weak.
Yeah.
I don't know why that analogy for like, because it reminded me of the incel thing, and we won't get into the incel conversation right now because we're trying to, but it reminded me of the Mask, Stanley Yelnats, or not Stanley Yelnats, what was his name? Stanley Ipkiss. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that ideology, that story arc, is what a lot of guys think that they have, where it's like the reason that nobody likes them is because they're into cartoons and because they're the nice guy. It's like, no, it's because you're a snarky asshole that makes jokes about people to their face. Like, that's why you're annoying, Stanley Ipkiss.
Yeah, he wins in the end because this is a movie.
But it's like, it's interesting how all that, like the incel-y energy, is because that stuff is disrespected, and instead of just owning it and not giving a fuck like you did,
right,
their version of reclaiming their masculinity is to be shitty to other people back.
Yeah, that's a thing that I wish we would have touched on in the beginning, but the flip side of like toxic masculinity is the nice guy syndrome. And I will say that I was a nice guy, like typical, like, I deserve to be loved, and I deserve attention because I'm such a great guy. And like, I was terrible, like, to women because of that. Like, I like was overbearing. I was like, I would like it's like the 500 Days of Summer, like that Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Like, that's how I was, and I think that's how a lot of men were. A lot of sensitive guys. Yeah, that's how they were. They saw themselves as like being deserving of like love and attention because they weren't this fucking bro. Because they weren't like like a dumb jock.
Right.
They're the nice, sensitive guy. So like, oh, I don't get it. Why isn't she like reciprocating my attention? Like, it's because you're a
Because she's
fucking
just, like-
creep, dude.
Yeah, but it's also like, from what I come on to understand from talking to female friends, it's also like she's just trying to exist, dog. Like that's not on their mind the whole time.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because media and culture, like literally movies, TV serves men. Like white men 18 to 35 are the number one demographic. I mean, obviously things are changing a little bit now, but it's like that's the demographic, that's the moneymaker. So like the thing is, because they're catering to that demographic, they're also spreading this to everybody.
Yeah.
And so like I grew up liking Rushmore. I grew up liking, you know, these like sensitive guy music and movies and stuff. And like it creates an image for young men to grow up, and like it's like Andrew Tate is as dangerous as 500 Days of Summer is as dangerous as Andrew Tate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it creates this thing on the flip side of like, oh, well, I'm not that. I'm better. I'm outside of that. But you still have these like misogynist views.
Well, yeah, like the pickup artist stuff, a lot of that stuff was nerds.
Yeah, they were the ones that losers.
Loser nerds.
But anyway, it's all just like, I guess to kind of round it out is like, look, just analyze your behavior and like,
I don't know. I thought you were gonna be like, analyze this.
Gabagoo!
I gotta stick a fucking fork in my eye. Dude, I was thinking about that movie. It's so funny that you brought that up. Analyze This and Analyze That are two of the best movies ever made.
You know, I've never seen it.
It's if you want to see Robert De Niro have a panic attack and like existential, it's a good.
It's one of Robert De Niro's best roles.
How do you milk rats?
Because he's making the face that he makes, but now it makes sense.
He's being a caricature of himself.
Yeah,
and it's honestly.
Oh,
really
I should check it out.
But anyway, we've digressed totally from the point. But it's just like, hey, don't be a shitty person, and don't look. For men and for young men, you're not owed anything, and just because you accomplish a checklist in your mind doesn't mean that you're going to be rewarded for it. You should do those things. You should try to be a good person because it's the right thing to do, not because you're going to be rewarded for it.
And even if you are a shitty person at times, the best way not to be is to just own it.
Yeah, like look, people are not infallible.
Yeah.
Like everybody has flaws. Everybody has done terrible things.
The world is kinder than you think, and you don't have to pretend you didn't make mistakes.
Look at Iron Man. That's a popular straight guy's character. He by the end learned to be caring and like
he learned that children are people too.
So if people made it this far, what should they leave a comment?
What's your favorite Robert De Niro?
No, Ryan.
If you made it this far, what's something that you've overcome, either as a male or a female or a non-binary, in terms of like masculine and non-masculine roles and expectations? And from all of us, every single one of us, in un poquito, you got to do it together. You lift the finger.
Sorry, I forgot that I would be on camera.
Don't fly.
Fly.